Well, hi everybody, back again with Kathy. We're a little bit later than usual. Oh, the hands came up because Kathy had an appointment, but I know you're all waiting. I've already had questions, Kathy. When are you doing?
Sure. You.
I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, so we're going to address kind of some bigger picture stuff today. But before I do, I'm Louise Edington. I have two memberships, but now I've kind of streamlined them. So on my Substack, I have paid subscription membership for $7 a month, and on my YouTube below, there's a six $6.99 a month membership now that both offers the same rewards, which is a once a month 90-minute Ask Me Anything call on Zoom. And I also have a private membership community that offers a lot more. And that's what I'm focusing on going forward for now. Anyway, Kathy.
Oh, I'm Kathy Beal. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. I have prolific forecasts and a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Beal, where at the lowest level you get 45 to 60-second sassy daily forecasts that kind of focus you for the day. They're proving to be insanely popular, and then there are many other levels possible with that as well. Oh, and
I know.
tonight
So,
I am talking about the masculine and feminine working together in tarot, astrology, and in ourselves. I'm at Donna Woodwell's Magic and Mastery, her school, her online school, magicandmastery.com/arcane atrium. It's free. You do need to register. And then I will have an offering that's a series of short courses exploring all of those things. And I've had loads of fun putting it together.
oh, I should also mention I am a peer group leader and mentor for OPA Astrology, the Organization of Professional Astrology, and they have their OPA kind of business conference coming up online, virtual, and that's in April. I'll put the link below, and I am presenting on using Substack as an astrologer and how to use it. Anyway, so I hope you'll join us for that. There's lots of really great speakers, and it's more about the practice and business of astrology, but it also kind of applies to those who work in our field in many ways. So, anyway, so we are starting with something that has come up because we got a ton of messages this week, both Kathy and I, as a result of one of our good friend astrologer videos who talked about the Dark Enlightenment. And a British astrologer, I'm not going to name him, you'll know him, and he was not wrong. And I will show you why he's not wrong, but he was also right that it's going to be okay. But he was also right about, for now, the US becoming isolationist and things. Now, I had some thoughts on it because clearly I'm British born and now I'm a US citizen. I have long loved the US. I spent some time in the US in the late 80s when I kind of see a lot of the seeds of what's happening now. And then I moved back here in 2008 as things really started to change on the election over Obama. And I even went back and studied US history, politics, sociology, and all things in the US as a mature student. So I've long loved the US. So anything I say that sounds critical comes from the critical eye, not the picky eye. Okay, because I think the potential of the USA is wonderful, and I think it's going to emerge from this even better. So I'm just going to start with the USA chart and just point at some things and talk about some things. So yes, the USA has been going through its Pluto return. So I'm using the Sibley chart, and astrologers don't all agree on the charts. There's many charts for the USA, but I think the Sibley chart is a good chart for where the United States, at least the idea of the United States, was born, I would say, because the United States does get described, right, as an experiment almost, and things like that. So this is the chart when it was born, and I'm just going to quickly mention some things. So over the last few years, the USA has been experiencing its Neptune opposition because Neptune was in Virgo, and that was in 2021, 3 passes. It's experienced the exact Pluto return, 27 degrees, in 2022, and is also been experiencing its Chiron return from April the 20th to February the 18th, 2025, and then is coming up to another Uranus return. Now, these are all big. This means the planets are either where they were when they were born, or in Neptune's case, has been opposing Virgo when the soul of the USA. I see this chart as the soul of the USA, right? So now then, I'm going to add in the Venus star point, but before I do, because I've been studying that and working with it for a long, long time, I just want to mention a few things about the chart of the USA. Oh, I'm also going to talk about this fixed star briefly, thanks to Andrew Smith in Ireland. But the USA's chart was founded, and it has most of the planets really in this side of the chart, this hemisphere. This is the midheaven, 1 Libra, this is the IC, 1 Aries, and most of the planets are on this side of the house. And most of the personal planets, Mercury dips into the 8th house using the house I use, but most of them are in the 7th house, Gemini, other people, alliances, all that kind of thing. And this is also from the soul of the country perspective, in my view. The phrase I love to use, thanks to Patricia Walsh, is the 7th house is about how we have compromised ourselves for others. And all of this, to go to the words of the other astrologers video and how I saw the USA before I moved here, because you don't really see it till you live here, was that, the USA just gave to people. Like, we did USAID and we did all these things and we looked after the world. But you look at really the essence of it, we didn't take care of ourselves. We don't have healthcare for everybody. People go bankrupt because of healthcare. There's lots of things like that. We got to, and this is bigger picture stuff. We got big money into politics, which is kind of just, really corrupted politicians on all sides. Not all the politicians, but a lot of them. The Democratic Party is also at an all-time low in the polls. So I'm trying to just pull in a few big threads. And then we see, MAGA with its ultra nationalist kind of protectionist kind of energy. And I think the USA has all these returns, all these kind of things have been saying, you've got to look inwards now and go pull the Cancer shell down and go, how are you working for the people of the USA in big picture? I've long said the Constitution's probably going to be rewritten before I even looked at all of this, or changed in a lot of ways after this big time of transformation. All of these things are transformational. Anyway, the VSP, or the Venus star point. I'm going to talk a little bit about the natal Venus star point, and I'm just going to draw arrows. I just want you to see the bigger picture and to reassure you that this change is going to come really fast, my opinion, and we're going to be okay. But probably not fast enough for most of you what you want, but anyway. So in this chart, the Sibley chart, the natal Venus star point, which was the one before where the Sun and Venus met before this date, was at 1 degree Scorpio. So that was in the 11th house, which is also kind of like friends, big alliances, things like that. And that's the head. But then we have 2 support legs on the 5-pointed star, and one of the supports was literally the IC, okay, which is the root of the chart, which is the basis of support of the whole chart in many ways, emotionally. And on that 5-pointed star, when the US was born, the Venus star point was at 2 degrees 50 minutes of Aries. Well, fast forward, and it was a morning star. So fast forward, we just had, and this will all come back when Kathy goes through all the aspects we've got going on now. We've just had the new Venus star point at 2 degrees 39 minutes of Aries. And this is a place of rebirth in many ways. The rebirth is coming from the inside up. It's looking at the very root of the formation of the country. All the transits are kind of bringing this, revealing everything that's wrong. So, we're hearing calls for new leadership for the Democratic Party, but clearly, we can see what's changing with the other side, but it's also calling for the country to finally come together as a people and to say we are all in it together, and to really make sure the country kind of works for everybody, and then we can help others in the bigger picture. But I also want to add Altair, because Andrew Smith did a wonderful presentation for my quantum astrology gathering, which you can get the recordings for free on my website. And he looked at this. Altair is ideals, and he talked about how when they were writing the Constitution back then, the founding fathers, Altair was conjunct Pluto. So Altair has been kind of being transited by all this the Pluto return as well. And I'm just going to clear the lines. And please ask me questions, people. I might try and do a really, detailed video, because there's so many pieces to this. But I just want to fast forward. Altair is now, from our perspective, moved into Aquarius. It's at 2 degrees Aquarius, and Pluto has now moved into Aquarius. And that Venus star point, the new one at 2 Aries, is aspecting Altair. So to my mind, all the trauma and collapse seemingly, and chaos and problems we've been going through are leading to a new vision of the future for the USA as a country from the roots up. Have I explained that fully enough, do you think, Kathy?
Can I add a few things?
Oh, yeah, there's so many points to it. Please do.
Well, I just want to elaborate on a few things. The Venus star point refers to a conjunction between the Sun and Venus. Venus representing what we value, how we get along with each other. And when there's a new Venus star point, it sets a how many month cycle in play?
Well, it
18-month
sets it sets several cycles, 9.5 months, 19 and 8 years, and then the greater cycle. This is the 251-year cycle I'm talking about here. So Venus,
Right.
and Venus star point works like an invisible heartbeat or clock working behind all the other kind of energies in the chart. And this and so not only has the USA been having Pluto return, which you hear a lot about, but it's also had the Chiron return, it's also having the Uranus return, but it's also been having this Venus star point return. And it's returning to where it was when it was birthed in a million ways. But Aries star point is new beginnings and new starts, and it's new creation. And so let's, bigger picture, when the USA was formed, 1776, the day we celebrate at least, to go fast forward to when the Constitution was ratified, that was a Capricorn star point. Okay, and that's the rules, the structures, the literal Constitution. Okay, so this is going to be a process, and I think the Constitution will be rewritten to fit the ideals, because they were, it was admired all throughout the world. the seventh house in many ways for this constitution that was built by the people for the people and all that. But when you're in it, you realize it wasn't built for everybody. So so anyway, yes. But the Venus star point is, it's kind of like the gifts of Venus when you are born, and the USA really is kind of looking at, were the gifts of Venus really fulfilled in their natal promise, if in the country's natal promise. And in many ways it wasn't, and it's got corrupted in many ways, which happens, and a lot of it to do with Venus, money. I mentioned it, money in politics, things like that. So many pieces to it. So to go back to the prenatal Venus star point. So we've also, that was in 11th house. I think we're getting down into the soul Scorpio, because it was a Scorpio star point, and rebirthing. And that wasn't that Biden's message? The soul of America. So, you may not like Biden as a person, but all these people are kind of voicing this rebirth, and Pluto is deep soul and deep connection. So anyway, just to reassure people that we're at this point of massive, massive rebirth. So, all the bits in between, when you hear that, well, the Civil War started when Neptune went into Aries again. Fast forward, we're going to have to the video that scared people. I see Saturn in a way as kind of like the dark enlightenment being shown to us. Saturn can represent darkness in many ways, or the heaviness in some point, but we're seeing it now. Who had heard of the dark enlightenment not long ago? But it's being brought to light so that we can say no, oh no, we don't want that. So
Well, two things I'd like to add to this.
mm,
For people who don't know what we're talking about, every time Venus and the sun meet, a star point, you can go to the next one, and when you draw lines, it actually does form ultimately a five-pointed star with how it all goes together. All right, so that's what
well, I
over
can let me show you. I did actually take a screenshot of my five-pointed star from my Venus class, just to kind of show people where we're at. Oh, hang on. I've got to bring it to the front clearly, so before it's all show.
And I have one more thing to say about this once you get it up.
While I bring it up, you say about it.
So where are we right now in
this is the new one that came on March the 22nd. So this is from my Venus class, because I just did. But this, if you like, is the USA's star point that it was born with. That 0 Scorpio one that's coming up in 2026. But there was one before that was also, because they go backwards over time by just 1 or 2 degrees. So this is a big process of change, going back through the signs. But this is the new one we've just had, right at the IC of the USA, and we'll have one more in 2033. And I'm going to suggest the rebirth. We're going to come out of this awful time very fast, but then it's going to be a renegotiation of how it all works, a bit like it was in 1776. The USA was declared independent, but it took a few years to write the Constitution and the rules right.
yeah, 12 or 13.
There you go. Birth of oil. It was about a Neptune cycle, by the way. It was, or a Neptune through a signs. Neptune was in Virgo, and then it was in Libra about 12 years later as well. So,
which is where it was during the peace and love generation of the 60s. So have faith, people. Can you put the US chart back up, please?
Yep.
All right. So one thing that scared a lot of people in other commentary was pointing out that right now Neptune is on the 30th, Neptune is moving into Aries. It'll be for the first time in 150 years. And it'll be on the IC, which is the doorway to our base, the doorway to homeland. It's like where the country is grounded, what our sense of home is. And then at the end of March, Saturn is going to move in that spot. And next year, the two of them will meet exactly on that spot. And so there is, and then the conclusion was made, this is a period of incredible isolationism coming. I would say something differently. And I would point out that the Venus star point happening there before these two bodies get there means we've already seeded a new way of how we're going to value, what we're going to value, how we're going to deal with these things. Neptune moving into Aries is, I see, our own individual link to spirit or guidance, not picking up from other people, not having someone else tell you what it is. Maurice Fernandez points out that Mahatma Gandhi was born with Neptune in Aries. So it's kind of like we're each our own spiritual warrior, our own acting on spiritual guidance. And I see the probability when Saturn also moves in there at the end of May, that it's going to be like our own internal governor locks into place, that we have an innate mastery, an innate knowledge of how to harness this energy and work with it. And it's already happening where female warrior goddess energy has just seared that spot.
Yes.
So I think that's very, very positive. And that piece was not taken into account in the message that scared so many people.
And I think also, this degree, zero Aries, I couldn't find where Saturn and Neptune had met at this world point of creation before, as well as it being on the Venus star point. Everything is converging right now. Just to add to the energy of it as well, Saturn, boundaries, and Neptune, kind of expansion and boundlessness and all of that. I kind of feel like, to go back to how my point about how the USA had always seemed this way to the outer world and had not really looked after its own internal affairs. I think there's going to be a rebalancing of that in a very healthy way because of these two meeting there.
That was it.
Yeah. There's just so many pieces and so many ways of looking at this. But I've called it a reckoning, all of this. There's other pieces that I could have brought in, but I think we're going to see we're already seeing the seeds of the change coming up from underneath, which is what Kathy and I have been trying to talk about on a weekly basis, with all the transits. And we've been trying to highlight the people whose voices are emerging, because this really at the fourth house cusp, the root as well, is also the point where things are going to emerge and come up to the top of the chart later. So people are emerging, new ideas are emerging, voices they're old ideas, but they're new too. But there's many ways this is going to really kind of start happening quite fast. In August, Venus and Jupiter meet right on the sun of the USA, which I think is lovely as well. So, just people have hope. Don't try not to just hear the kind of fear words that are out there. I've actually just submitted an article to a magazine about how, we as astrologers should stop sowing fear. But Steve Judd, I don't think did in his video. Oh, sorry, I said his name. I love him. You're my friend, Steve. And I don't think he did. I listened to it 5 times, and all I could hear was he was looking as an outsider, looking in and saying, oh, you're abandoning us, kind of thing. USA. Well, I think it's necessary for a little while. And I think I would have felt that way if I hadn't lived here since 2008 and seen where things were not working for the people here. So Yeah. Anyway, so he was not wrong. And the Dark Enlightenment, if people have not heard of it, is this kind of movement that Musk and all those players that we've looked at, Peter Thiel, all the oligarchs and things, are trying to do the power grab, and nobody thinks that's going to work, including psychics, us, most astrologers that I've heard talking about it. But it's always been hovering at the root of the chart, that kind of energy in the US, this kind of white nationalist kind of, you know, obviously the history, the KKK, and all those kind of people. It's always been hovering in the undercurrent, but I think their time is definitely done. Yeah. There's positive sides to that as well. There's many Black astrologers have said Saturn is related to Black people. So, I think they're kind of going to take their rightful place in the Constitution, as are women, Venus.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the way things look right now may not bear any relationship to what's really going on, which is a strange thing to say, but we have a pileup of planets at the end of Pisces, and very illusory, very, very, very illusory.
And that's why we encourage every week people to start do their self-care. In my Venus class this week, I said have a digital detox if it gets to you right now, because this pile up at the end of Pisces is peak chaos and gaslighting and delusion and illusion and fear. So if it instills fear in you to hear what's going on out there, it's okay to take a cleansing self-care break right now, because we're kind of at the peak turning point, and most of it's not coming to fruition anyway. Judges are blocking it and things are coming to light, which is what we're going to talk about now. Yes.
I want to point out a few things in the news that are playing out, astrological forecasting that we did. Now, last week there was that Mercury met the sun, so that's called the Mercury cazimi. Mercury retrograde in Aries, and then Mercury had a handshake or opportunity aspect or sextile with Pluto, big money, secrets, criminality. And right when those two things happened, news broke about that Signal chat thread about bombing. Okay, so first off, there's a journalist who was added to it. Mercury rules journalists, Mercury rules the chat, Mercury rules things flying through the air. This was all about bombing, about war. It was all Aries. It was all governmental people. So that was the sun part of it. And
we had mentioned like Mars, war battle kind of issues many times. Maybe that was the one.
maybe
Yeah.
this is it. But so two things growing out of this. First off, Mercury was retrograde. All right. Supposedly this was a mishap. Who knows how this journalist got added to the chain. Mercury will be back in that spot April 20th and 21st. So that's a point when you can expect more to come from this. Why do I say there is staying power in this, besides the fact that this violates many laws? Well, the event, the chain itself, took place on the lunar eclipse of March 15th, the Ides of March. And several things coming out of that. That eclipse, which was at 23 Virgo with Saturn with the sun. That eclipse formed a configuration with Trump's chart called a Grand Cross, which kind of like splayed him in multiple directions. Saturn was at the midpoint between his sun and the moon, so there's huge issues of accountability and other countries because it's in his house of allies and open enemies. One of the people on this thread was in Moscow when it happened. It's since been revealed that Pig Headseth has and Musk has a Russian email address. German intelligence has been looking at it. We said foreign intelligence was going to bring information back. This is not going away. It also does a similar thing to Michael Walz's chart. It makes a grand cross for him, so he's being pulled in multiple directions. It was on Pete Hegseth's Saturn, how he uses his responsibility or not. And this event, I said March 15 was when the wrecking ball was going to hit Trump for the third and final time. And when this news broke, the wrecking ball itself, Uranus, was exactly on his midheaven. There are repercussions from this. People say, well, what does Trump do with it? He's the top of the administration. He's the one who appointed these people. And
Well, and it's
Republic.
he's just energetically, he's the leader of it. So of course it's got to do with him, you know? Yeah.
And the Republican head of the Senate Armed Forces Committee, and actually both the Republican head and the ranking member have demanded that the Inspector General of the Defense Department look into this. Now, the Pentagon said it was going to look into the leak. Pam Bondi, the AG, has said, oh, there aren't going to be criminal charges for this. I'm not so sure that something big isn't going to come from this. And again, Louise and I have been saying information is going to come out of Europe, and German intelligence has taken it upon itself to do lots of research about these people and to tell a leading news magazine in Germany called Der Spiegel, the Mirror, which hates Trump, by the way. And they've found all kinds of personal data easily available all on the web about these people. Benghazi. Okay, so I say that to you.
Oh, can I just add one thing? You know, just to go back to that Venus star point at the root of the USA's chart, the article itself was printed pretty much on the Venus star point as well on that day, which was also the halfway point between eclipses. And that was right at the base of that chart. So going back to the basis of security for the whole country. So anyway.
So there will be more. There will be more to this story, and April 20th, 21st, keep that in mind. But in the meantime, we have been saying, and that eclipse, redrawing boundaries, redrawing relationships. We've been saying, watch what other countries are doing. Well, the new Prime Minister of Canada has said that the previous economic and military mutual support between Canada and the US is a thing of the past. It's no more. All right, so that's a redrawing of boundaries, redrawing of responsibilities. And I had mentioned that on the eclipse, Saturn was slamming into, saying no to, or getting pressure from Trump's sun, what he blithers on about, and his moon, his foreign relations, his policy decisions. Virtually, we now have far more than 130 lawsuits against him, and virtually every court decision has been no, no, no. Workers have been ordered back. Agencies have been ordered not to shut down. Almost every court is saying no, no, no. The defense DOJ has made a thoroughly ridiculous argument in the case with the Venezuelans who were sent after a judge said, no, you don't. And that's going to go up to the Supreme Court. That will be fascinating to see. So things that we've been saying are happening. So where are we right now? Okay. Venus is retrograde. It has gone from Aries, from warrior goddess mode, back into Pisces. Venus met Neptune on the 20th. Yes.
I'm just going to share the chart now, so I can point so people can see it if that's all right. Can I just add one other thing that's been happening in the news? Talking of looking for things that are happening, that are changing. There was the guy in Pennsylvania that won the state Senate race, the Democrat. Huge swing. Now, again, he was also like, you know, a more kind of, I don't take money from corporations kind of Democrat. So these are these people that are rising. There's one in Florida that could flip a heavily red seat. Weiss. Anyway, all of these things are starting to shift. Anyway, so. Yeah. carry on. Sorry. I did
Oh,
not mean to
so
interrupt. Yeah.
Venus retrograde started on March 1st.
Mhm.
Venus started at the degree where this weekend solar eclipse is happening. She's been going back through Aries. We've got people going into the streets, people being much more vocal, fighting for what they believe in. On the 15th, Mercury went retrograde, traveling through the same area. So we've got dual retrogrades going on, digging up all kinds of stuff, particularly having to do with use of force,
Mhm.
bullying the military. So on the 27th, Venus slid back into Pisces, met with Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. On the 29th, Mercury retrograde is going to go back into Pisces, meet with Neptune. So we've got this Neptune conjunction sandwich on either side of the solar eclipse at 9
Mhm.
degrees Aries on the 29th. And
And
what
Mercury and Neptune are meeting at the very last minute of the zodiac, just to add. That makes it even more powerful for this endings thing. So
Right, so
just,
that's a
just
back and forth from the most interconnected point of the zodiac, 29 Pisces, and the start of creation. So it's back and forth, this weird dance with what we value, how we get along, how we think, information flow, flowing back into those absolute interconnected waters, meeting with Neptune, and then Neptune goes sayonara and goes across and moves into Aries, baptized. All right. So, this new way of expressing our connection to spirit
Mhm.
comes with being baptized in the interconnectedness with all of reality. It's extraordinary. And then the solar eclipse in the middle of it is ending a 2-year process of rewriting our relationships with eclipses in the signs of Aries and Libra. They started in March 2023. This is the final one. It is shooting us out of the fog forward like crazy. It's setting
Mhm.
off NATO's chart. So
Oh,
we've been saying we expect something to come from NATO. And usually eclipses are not single day events, they play out over a period of months. It's extraordinary that a defining event occurred on the lunar eclipse on March 15th. It took us a while to learn about it, but it did happen then. So I'm betting something really attention getting occurs this weekend. And then next
I know.
week,
Look at when the eclipse is. This is Utah time, but this is very early tomorrow morning. So things are going to start happening fast. So, you know.
it'd be a crazy Friday night. Next week on April 4th, a lot of change. So this is all clearing and making a lot of things happen. But by April 4th, there's this very weird possibility of getting a handle on things. Saturn, Mars and Saturn both sextile Uranus. So how we push forward, maybe the military, maybe the government, maybe the courts, maybe just our own standing up and saying, I'm going to be an adult about this. Both of those have like an open door, an open window relationship to doing something wildly different, very, very suddenly. And Mars and Saturn are uh, in cahoots on that day. They're in this flow. It's called a trine. Mars is traveling through territory that it was in late in October and again early in January. If somebody out there in a position of power does have information about things that
Mhm.
happened, then something will happen and there'll be movement on it. And this is going across in Trump's chart. It's going across his natal Saturn. So where he trips himself up or where he holds himself back or where he is called upon to act with responsibility, but that's not.
And his Venus, of course,
And his
because
Venus, which, yeah, well, those two
his,
together are the
yeah.
signature for the Trump organization and the money that he gets.
So just look at this. If you add in, the table shaker Eris as well, look at it, or Saturn 24. Eris 24, Uranus 24, Mars 24. Saturn and Uranus are a minute from their first exact sextile since 1997, which is also an aspect of opportunity. Things, and we're just coming right after an eclipse. Things are going to start really changing so fast.
And Uranus is in the ninth house of legal matters, policy, immigration, foreign relations. Something will come that is shocking and turns the table over from another country. So what we got this week with German intelligence, spending a couple of days digging around online and then spilling it to their big news periodical, I think something even bigger happens next week.
Oh, I think so. I think people are, and this kind of brings me back to, what I've been discovering about this Altair Pluto conjunction after the Pluto return. I think Pluto is digging up where all these connections in Uranus are not living up to the ideal of kind of, what or what we want for the future, which is also very Aquarius. And it's in the sign of plutocrats as well. Pluto in Aquarius can be the plutocrats, and all these things are being dug up, which what Pluto does as well. So
So crazy weekend. Be really, really discerning in what you choose to do. I personally I am not going to go out into huge crowds this weekend. Know that people have all kinds of stuff getting riled up in them. And you with Venus and then Mercury both being in Pisces, we're all sponges, more so than normally. Trust your intuition and recognize when your energy field is changing because you've come in contact with something, and go take care of yourself. Go clean, go do something. If you just want to sit and watch some streaming service all weekend, that would be, and then go for a run. Those would be very good way, very beneficial and prudent ways to spend this energy.
And literally, when I said a digital detox, if you can't resist checking in on apps and getting drawn into that chaos and fear that is out there, delete them temporarily at least, because
Mm.
there is going to be a lot happening. I mean, I think Kathy and I have probably worked on developing the skills to be able to kind of see it and not get too sucked into it. But I understand it's a lot. It's a real lot for a lot of people, and so digital detox. Yeah, but it's just wild. There's so many pieces to this. The more I look, and it was Kathy that asked me to kind of look at the bigger picture as the outsider coming in. I've delved into the USA, studying the history. I was a delegate for Bernie. I've kind of seen how it works from the inside, coming in as an outsider, and there's so much that needs fixing, and I think we realize that, and people are going to rise up and say, let's fix this properly as much as we can. Nothing's perfect, but there you go.
And what we see going on in Washington is I'm going to go out on a limb. It's a temporary situation. It is not going to last for its full term. I don't think it's going to last very much longer at all. It's happening too quickly. It's unsustainable. The point of it is to destroy as much as possible and not put anything in place. Um, you know, uh, and there will be things we'll have to deal with for a very, very long time as a consequence of
Oh,
this. I want to
but
undercut that. All the scientists who are leaving, all the medical research that has been shut down, the money that is being cut off for different types of schooling. We'll be dealing with this for a long time, but sometimes, I saw a really good analogy. Susan Lynn, Spirit Navigator, talked about someone comes in and just ransacks your house and you have to clean it up and rebuild it. There's a lot of stuff you can't even put back together anymore, and you rearrange how you're going to do things. That's really what our task is going to be. I do see us fixing it. I do see a lot of things being tremendously better and fairer as a consequence.
I do too, because let's face it. I mean, yes, we're very reliant on a lot of these structures that are being under attack, but there was also a lot of them were outdated. The systems they used were outdated. Some were bloated. There was some truth in, their motivations for destroying them were perhaps not, but they're all playing part of this major reckoning. So I think, to go back to another phrase, I think we're going to build back better.
Indeed. And I will just point out that the Zero Scorpio's star point pulls in
Mm,
Biden's moon. So he
it
did actually
does.
play a big role in all this.
Yes, he
In a
did.
positive way, people. Don't you diss him to me.
No, I mean, no, again, nobody's perfect. I think that's part of our big shift as well internally as people, because, the Aquarius moon in the US chart is the people, and that is coming together and all playing our part. We've Yeah, I'm shocked by how few people vote here, for it to be quite honest, or how people do not get engaged at all in the process. I'm not saying everybody has to go to Washington, but just understanding it and interested in it. It's and it's time for that to change too, I think, as well, and I think that's going to change too.
I have summed up what's going on at this moment as throwing us into the challenge of independent living in an interdependent universe. I'm
Yes,
very, very pleased with that phrase.
that is a very wonderful phrase. Yeah, and I love Heather Ensworth. She says we're moving out of the power over, which, even the messaging of the USA was built on that, like, manifest destiny, and it was all about dominion over. And she says we're moving into power from, and I'd say it's power from the people more. So we
Excellent.
don't know what we don't know what it's going to look like exactly, but the energy is moving that way. So yeah. So I think that's all for you. So it's a big picture today. And next week, we've got a guest coming on again, another astrologer who loves to talk about these things. And we'll probably get more into the nitty gritty again next week. So,
And there'll be things that will have happened that we'll look at.
oh yes, lots more. Talk to you later. Bye.